Hi friends, welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be wrapping up Alcott April. So I want to thank Tiffany from Beautiful Minutia for bringing myself, Dia from Novel Idea, and from In Search of Wonder, and Emma from The Bookish Princess together to have this wonderful readathon experience with her. I had such a great time, and I wanted to wrap up everything I read and talk about the experience. So the first thing I want to talk about is The Inheritance. Now this is the group read that was chosen for the readathon, and I'm so glad because it's probably not something I would have gotten to anytime soon on my own. This is a book that Louisa May Alcott wrote when she was around 17 years old. It was discovered later, and it wasn't published until the 1990s. And I would say that you can definitely tell that this was a more of a young adult type novel. She was very serious about it and very dramatic, and the characters were a little bit more one note and not have the depth that her characters in her later works had. However, it is shocking how well this was written for a 17-year-old girl to have done it. So we're following Edith, who is a basically companion for the daughter in this family. She was rescued by the husband when she was a baby from just having a terrible orphan's fate. And so she is living with this family, and the mother is a very kind of like iffy about her. The brother and the sister really admire her and are glad she's part of the family. And enters Lord Percy, who is being thought of as maybe a suitor for a cousin Ida who has come to stay. And we find out that Edith has a secret in this family that she does not know about, and no one else does too. We have some side characters that enter, some evil, some morally gray, but it's definitely one I would give a shot. It's a very short read, and to follow Dia's adaptation suggestion for her prompt, we watched the movie in Tiffany's Discord together, which was so much fun. And actually, a lot of us actually think we might have liked the movie a little bit better. It added a little bit of humor that I think Louisa would have appreciated. And it was just a good adaptation, not perfect. There were some plot holes, but it definitely was a fun adaptation. So Tiffany's prompt was to read a biography about Louisa, and a lot of us ended up reading this too. And this is Marmee and Louisa by LaPlante. Now, she is actually a great niece of Abigail, who was Louisa's Marmee, Abigail Alcott. This dealt with the life that Abigail Alcott and her daughter Marmee had together. It goes a lot into the family history. We see just the struggle of poverty and how hard Marmee worked, Louisa and the other girls. We see a lot of what affected Louisa's writing, why she wrote certain short stories, all her novels. You really see the parallels in her life, what a hard time her and her Marmee had. Bronson Alcott, Louisa's father, he had a lot of ideals, but he was not good at providing for his family or always being there physically for his family, emotionally there for his family. And the poverty was just so hard. Louisa's mom always tried to speak out for those who can speak for themselves. She was a social worker. Of course, the whole family was known for being strong abolitionists, but Louisa's mom also really spoke out for women's rights and the right to vote. I was very proud of Marmee, and I was very proud of how Louisa rose above. She had a hard life. You know, she was a nurse during the Civil War for a short time, got typhoid. It destroyed her health for the rest of her life. She was writing so many of these books, just terribly ill, but wanting to take care of her family and make sure, and they were taken care of by her. So I'd recommend this. I definitely love how she included so many quotes. You weren't wondering where the opinions were coming from. She gave us her sources. I would definitely read more biographies by that writer. So we already covered that Dia's prompt was to watch an adaptation, and we watched The Inheritance. I wanted to watch Little Women 1990s too. I haven't gotten around to that unless I watch it later today, which I doubt I'll have time to get to. I won't get to it, but I do want to watch it sometime soon. Anne's prompt was to read a short story by Louisa May Alcott, and I wrote two. I didn't write any. I read two short stories. One was Happy Women, and this was written in 1868. And in this story, she talks about women who have been successful, lawyers, women who have made their own way without the help of a male provider, like Louisa was. And then also I read My Contraband, which was written during the Civil War and maybe inspired a little bit by Louisa's nursing experience. It deals with a nurse who is she is a Union nurse taking care of a Confederate soldier that they're just kind of keeping alive, and a contraband, which just that word itself makes me a little ill, because that was a term for slaves that escaped to the North, and if they didn't follow the unfortunate law where you had to send them back, they would keep them as contraband, talking about people as if they were just, stuff you stole or something. And so better to keep them, I guess, than send them back. But couldn't you have come up with a more humane name? Come on. Anyways, so this contraband was there and helping Louisa out. And we find out that the soldier and this contraband have a history together, and Louisa kind of gets involved in their story. It was very intriguing, very dramatic, very heartfelt. I enjoyed that short story. So Emma's prompt was to read a work by one of Louisa's neighbors. They lived in this community where there were so many creative people around them. And Courtney reads, and Betty read Walden. And so this is the story of how Henry David Thoreau, who was a pretty close neighbor when the Alcotts lived in Concord, he went out and he was a squatter on this land by Walden Pond, and he just talks about his ideals, his thoughts on minimalism, on not supporting different trades that were feeding into slavery. There were some things I disagreed with him on. I think that transcendentalist ideas in general don't necessarily line up with a lot of my views. He tended to elevate nature a little bit above what I feel it is, a wonderful gift from the Creator. But I really did enjoy his deep views on things, and he made me think, and he seemed like he would have been a good guy to have a deep conversation with. Then for my own prompt, which was to read a work by someone who inspired Louisa's writing, and he was actually a neighbor as well, so it kind of also was a double onto Emma's prompt, was I read Nature, again with Courtney Reed's, which is an essay that he wrote either shortly before or during the Civil War. And Emerson is one of my favorite poets. I love his poetry, but I will say that his writing, even though was beautiful, was a little bit on the poetic side to where I didn't quite always grasp what he was saying. Also, I disagreed with him personally on his belief that you could somehow almost become divine yourself if you kind of become a little bit more one with nature. And I could be misunderstanding him, but that really felt like a lot of what he was saying. He did make some good points, but I do strongly oppose his point of view if what he was saying is that you could become divine and become one with nature. So some other reads that I did that weren't prompts, but I just wanted to read. My kids and I listened to Under the Lilac Tree, which was by Louisa, and it involves a young orphan boy who has escaped from people treating him cruelly at the circus. He has lost contact with his father. He's just on his own. He has his dog that tries tricks with him. So a mother and her daughters actually kind of take him in, and a local woman and her son kind of hire him. Actually, it's a local woman and her much younger brother hire him to do work and kind of take him in to be educated. And it's just a good found family. I felt like part of the book was a little bit too much discussion of just a peek in everyday life and lost a little bit of the plot. But in the end, I was so satisfied with how this ended, and I highly recommend this book. And then we will not finish it this month, but my kids and I started reading Eight Cousins, which is one of my favorite Louisa May Alcott children's stories. And we're going to be continuing to read that in May and possibly June, however long it takes us to finish. So thank you everyone who joined us for Alcott April. And thank you to all of my co-hosts. Thank you, Tiffany, for bringing us together. I hope you all read a lot. Bye-bye.